On a freezing night, a rich man saw his maid sleeping on a park bench. What he did next shocked everyone and changed two lives forever. A cold night and a lonely bench. The snow was falling slowly over the city. The streets were quiet. The wind was cold. People hurried home, but one woman sat alone on a bench in a small park. Her navy blue uniform was covered in white frost. Her head dropped to the side as if she had no more strength. That woman was Maria. For 3 years, Maria worked as a housemaid for Edward Blake, a rich businessman in Chicago. Edward's mansion was huge, full of marble and gold. His life was perfect, strict, and cold. Edward never talked much to Maria. He only saw that she was always on time, always quiet, and always made sure the fireplace was ready every morning. To him, she was just someone who worked there. He never asked about her life. Last Friday, Maria came 5 minutes late. Her eyes were red. Her hands shook. Edward didn't ask why. He just said coldly, "You're finished here. Leave now." No money, no letter, no thank you. Maria did not argue. She simply nodded and left. Edward did not know that Maria had been living in his laundry room for months. Maria's silent struggle. Maria's mother back in Louisiana was very sick. Maria sent all her salary home to pay for medicine and to care for her younger brother. With rent prices going up, Maria could not pay for a room. She worked all day, and at night she slept in a hidden corner of the laundry room. When Edward fired her, she lost even that. She had no home, no money, not even a bus ticket. That night, wearing thin shoes and the same uniform, she walked around the city. The shelters were full. The train stations were dangerous. Her phone battery was dead. Finally, she sat on a cold bench and closed her eyes for just a moment. The cold wind crept into her body. By morning, her fingers could not feel anything. The moment Edward saw. Edward almost never walked to his meetings, but that day, his driver was late. In anger, he decided to walk through the park to save time. The snow crunched under his expensive shoes. Then he saw her. At first, he didn't know it was Maria. She looked so weak, her lips blue from the cold. Her thin uniform was covered in snow. He walked closer. His heart jumped. "Maria?" he said. She didn't answer. He touched her shoulder. Her skin was ice cold. He shook her gently. "Maria, wake up." No response. For the first time in many years, Edward felt real fear. He pulled out his phone with shaking hands and called an ambulance. While waiting, he brushed the snow from her arm. He remembered how she always made tea for him, how she smiled once at the flowers by the window. But he realized he knew nothing else about her. The siren came closer. He helped lift her onto the stretcher. Then he followed the ambulance, not as her boss, but as a man who finally saw someone he had ignored for years. In the hospital, the nurse said quietly, if she stayed outside for 1 more hour, she would have died. Edward sat beside her bed in the emergency room. He didn't leave. He didn't answer phone calls. He didn't care about his meetings. He just looked at Maria. An oxygen mask covered her face. Tubes were in her arms. Her skin was pale. Edward realized something. He had built a life full of money, but he had failed to see the person right in front of him. She wakes up. It was almost midnight when Maria opened her eyes. Her dry lips moved. "Am I dead?" she whispered. Edward leaned forward. "No," he said softly. "You're alive. You're safe now." Her eyes blinked and focused on him. She looked confused. "Why are you here?" His voice shook. "Because I should have been here a long time ago." She turned away, tears rolling down her face. "I didn't steal. I didn't lie. I was never late until that day." Edward nodded. "And I never asked why. That is my mistake, not yours." She said nothing more. and he stayed with her all night. A new beginning. The next morning, Edward went home with a heavy heart. He called all his staff together and told them everything. He admitted his mistake. "I fired someone without understanding her life. It almost killed her." Everyone stood silent. Then he said the words no one expected. "I am sorry." The story spread quickly, especially after a jogger posted a photo online of Maria on that snowy bench. Reporters came to ask Edward for a statement. He refused to speak. "I have work to do," was all he said. Back from the hospital. When Maria was finally discharged, a black car was waiting. Edward stood there in a clean suit, holding a warm coat and scarf. "This is not charity," he said. "This is me trying to make things right." Maria wanted to refuse. Her pride was strong, but the hospital bills were huge and she had nowhere else to go. "Please," he said, "come stay in my guest room, not to work, just to rest. When you are ready, we will talk about what you want, not what I expect." At last, she agreed. Healing and trust. For weeks, Maria stayed in a bright guest room. She met with a private doctor. For the first time in many months, she felt warm and safe. Edward quietly brought her mother and brother from Louisiana. He rented them an apartment near the city. Every evening, Edward sat with Maria. They drank tea. She told him about her life, her dreams, and all the pain she had hidden. This time, he listened. A new role. One morning, Edward came to her with a new offer. "I want you to be the director of staff and welfare for all my homes and companies. Your job will be to make sure no one ever suffers silently the way you did." Maria was surprised. "You trust me with that?" He looked straight at her. "I have never trusted anyone more." The gala months later, Edward held a charity event in his mansion. He stepped up to the microphone and said, "I once thought I was powerful because I built tall buildings, but a woman I didn't really see showed me what real strength is. Even when life forgot her, she kept working with grace and kindness." Then he introduced Maria. She walked onto the stage in a simple blue dress. Her hair was braided neatly. The crowd rose to their feet. They clapped, not out of pity, but out of respect. A changed man. The maid that no one saw had become the woman who changed everything. And the man who once fired her finally found a better kind of success. Not money, but kindness. What do you think? Should rich people learn to really see the people who work for them? Tell us in the comments. And remember, stay kind, stay curious, and keep watching for more true stories that touch the heart.